pitch for 2024 was less about his record, but rather a pretty bleak picture of what might happen if he doesn't get a second term. Listen.
The guy who claims law and order sows lawlessness and disorder. Trump's not concerned about your future, I promise you. Trump is now promising a full-scale campaign of revenge and retribution, his words, for some years to come.
But even some Pennsylvania Democrats took note of what the president left out of his speech.
There's a crisis at the border, and I don't know how anybody could pretend that there isn't. And now with the latest figures from December of over 200,000 people.
And it's not just Republicans who say the president is being hypocritical when it comes to his message about preserving democracy. One of his own Democratic challengers, Congressman Dean Phillips, issued a scathing statement accusing Biden and his allies of efforts to keep his opponents off primary ballots. Phillips saying in part, Biden has remained silent while allies and state parties conspire to deny ballot access to Biden's primary opponents in North Carolina, Tennessee, Florida, and Wisconsin. For their part, Republicans argue the president would rather divide America with polarizing rhetoric than acknowledge his policies aren't working. Trace.
Jackie Banya's live for us in New York. Jackie, thank you. Let's bring in political analyst Teslin Figaro, along with Aaron Perini from Axiom Strategies. Welcome to you both. Here's President Biden talking about Trump wanting an all-out war. Watch.
You can't have a contest if you see politics as an all-out war instead of a peaceful way to resolve our differences. All-out war is what Trump wants.
Interesting, Aaron, because, you know, he's saying Trump wants an all-out war, and he just kind of condemned half the country.
He did, and for Joe Biden to decide to launch his campaign, again, in a very dark, divisive manner, where he, instead of running on his record to the point that everybody's been making, he's again choosing to pick the democracy trope that he's been running on before. Now, to Democrats' credit, that did work in 20 and 22, but in 24, Biden now has a record he should be running on. If he feels he was successful, he should be focusing on that. But instead, and this is a big thing for Joe Biden right now, he has a true issue, not only with favorability, not only with approval ratings, but with enthusiasm. Now, 10 months is a forever in politics, but if you're looking right now at the snapshot that exists, Joe Biden is an incumbent president walking into his election year with the lowest approval rating of any modern president. You couple that with enthusiasm problems, where a latest USA Today poll had President Trump with the group of voters that say they're most likely to vote for him, that on a scale 1 to 10, 45% of them said they were 10. They'd run through a brick wall for him. For Joe Biden, that number sits at 18. So he's trying to drum up enthusiasm right now with emotion. Yeah. To hold that emotion for 10 months is a very difficult strategy.
So what about Jonathan Turley? He said this about Biden and democracy. Tesla, we'll get your response.
It's also worth noting, when he talks about the freedom of speech, the Biden administration, I've written before, is the most anti-free speech administration since the administration of John Adams. I mean, his administration has carried out what a federal court called an Orwellian censorship program with the help of social media companies.
And it's documented, Teslin. You look at Matt Taibbi and Barry Weiss, they have documented exactly what happened there. They shut down dissent.
Yeah, it really doesn't matter at this point. People have already decided that they're going to ride with President Trump. I don't understand why the Biden campaign is starting so late. I don't know if they're deaf, dumb, or maybe just possibly both. At the end of the day, you've had President Trump for the last 4 years, former President Trump for the last 4 years, rally consistently year-round, 365 days a year, maintaining his base. And here we are 8-9 months before the election, and Joe Biden campaign has not even really started yet on the ground. You're absolutely right with President Trump talking about the economy today, talking about immigration, while Joe Biden is talking about democracy. And although that is important, people just are not buying it. President Biden has to be able to convince his voters. And to be honest with you, I don't know if it's enough time to be able to talk to all of the different people in his base who are disappointed with him on many, many things. And this is not me endorsing Trump. They're not interested in voting for Trump. They're interested in staying home. And he's helping them do that, unfortunately.
Well, like Aaron was saying, look, 10 months is a long time. Here's Trump on Biden's record. We'll get him, and Aaron will get your response.
What he's done to this country is unthinkable. Biden's record is an unbroken streak of weakness, incompetence, corruption, and failure. Other than that, he's doing quite well, isn't he, Doug?
I got about 30 seconds for both of you. Aaron, you're first.
Well, it's clear the American people agree with the sentiment that Joe Biden's not doing well. His approval rating reflects that. If Republicans want to win in 24 with whoever the nominee is, they should be well ahead of Joe Biden in polling, and they're only slightly ahead at this point. So Republicans need to hone the message now about the economy, about immigration to win in November, and not just attack the president. Let's get a message out there.
Teslin, your final thoughts.
Well, the Democrat side, they need to start knocking on some doors. The messaging is not working. Being able to fear people in fear, they just don't believe it. They've seen President Trump in office before, that he's shown exactly what he would do if he was in office, and people just don't believe it. The Democrat Party is completely in disarray. The progressives don't believe you anymore. The young voters certainly don't believe you anymore. You have a war going on. They're begging you for ceasefire. On every single level, people are disappointed, and so it's just a hot mess. That's just the bottom line.
Teslin Figueroa, Aaron Perini, thank you both. Meantime, the latest tactic in America's crime crisis appears to be mob rule, and it's all the rage in big cities like Los Angeles, where leaders don't have the political will or the resources to crack down on widespread lawlessness. Christina Coleman is live with a closer look at this. Christina, good evening.
I mean, Tracy, it's just awful what's happening with this mob mentality. As we have seen, it can escalate quickly, and that appears to have been the case in at least 2 incidents just this week alone. As we first told you last night, a mob of looters crashed a Kia Soul into Ruben's Bakery and Mexican food store in Compton on Tuesday, then raided it after a street takeover in that area. Thieves ran off with cash registers and food. The looters apparently caused thousands of dollars worth of damage to this family business.
They really don't care about what they destroy or who to destroy. We need to have a sense of urgency. We need to jump on this a little bit faster. We're seeing this happen weekend after weekend.
Weekend after weekend, just a shame. TMZ reports that actor Ian Ziering's Mercedes was hit by a group of bikers who were weaving in and out of traffic on New Year's Eve. The 59-year-old actor, who is most known for his role on Beverly Hills 90210, was seen on video shoving one of the bikers after the incident, and a group of them are also seen fighting him, just throwing punches at him. Ziering says he was defending himself. After he managed to get away, a biker is then seen on video pounding his helmet on Ziering's car while his 10-year-old daughter was alone in the vehicle. Fortunately, Ziering was able to return to comfort his daughter. And it's not just in California where this mess is happening. In the nation's capital, someone posted a flyer urging thieves to go to town this week. It read, quote, "Shoplifters unite. Take everything that's not nailed down. Bust windows." This violent mob mentality is yet another thing law enforcement has to deal with nationwide as they grapple with fewer officers and longer response times as a result of staffing shortages following the defund the police movement. Trace?
Christina, thank you. Well, the Fox News at Night Common Sense Department was watching today as President Biden made his first big campaign push of the 2024 cycle. Biden spoke in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania for the better part of 30 minutes. And as expected, he went after former President Trump and those who support the former president, you know, the so-called MAGA Republicans. And over the next few weeks, Joe Biden plans to highlight the January 6, 2021 Capitol riot, the 2017 violence in Charlottesville, Virginia, and the 2015 Charleston church shooting that killed 9. Part of Biden's campaign theme is, quoting here, "America is worried about the rise in political violence." And Common Sense thinks the president is mostly right. Except it's not political violence. America is worried about the rise in plain old violence that we report on every single day. Carjackings, rapes, murders, up across the country. And every day we get disturbing new video of people being targeted by mobs, robbed by mobs, beaten by mobs. And these are not MAGA mobs. They're just mobs. Do people walk the streets in fear of MAGA mobs? Are CVS and Target locking items up because of MAGA mobs? No. And now the Biden campaign is set to release a new ad that says, quote, "There's something dangerous happening in America." And again, Common Sense thinks they are correct. I think to you first, Julie, because violent crime in California, we've talked a lot about this, it's up. And from the rest of the nation, it's up 31% than the national average. This is from 2022, which is the last year we have full statistics. We'll get 2023 soon, but 31% above the rest of the country. That's a lot. It's a big number.
It is a big number. And you look at LA County has over 10 million residents. And on day one in office, DA George Gascon said, I'm not going to prosecute juveniles for misdemeanor crimes.
Mm-hmm.
You look at the security footage from that Reuben's Bakery, looks like young people. I don't know how old they are.
They're young.
But these people know that they can get away with it, and there are literally zero repercussions. So we have a political system in LA County that enables this behavior. No one's being held accountable. I think that's a pretty easy fix. Why don't we elect a prosecutor who will actually prosecute crime?
Maybe Bill O'Saley can handle that position.
Can
Bill, that's kind of your category here. The Wall Street Journal writes the following here. Chads, straight out of Compton. Chaos, straight out of Compton. The left wants voters to believe the post-pandemic crime surge is over, but crime remains elevated in many American cities, and the public and criminals know that. Lawlessness is still too often tolerated. Witness the extraordinary raid on a business straight out of Compton, California. I mean, LA does not have the resources. The sheriff will tell you, they don't have the resources. The Highway Patrol says the same thing, to be able to go in and police these types of mob activities.
Well, the secret is very few people commit most of the crime. And when we used to be able to incarcerate them and lock them up in prison, crime rates would go down.
Yeah.
But now there's no deterrence. Under the auspice of criminal justice reform, they've emptied the prisons. The governor continues to close prisons. And I asked his people, are you closing prisons because you expect less crime? And they just said, these are our trend projections.
Yeah, it really is amazing. Here's Senator Bill Cassidy on migrants getting health care, which is a very important issue to both of you. Watch.
Medicaid for migrants will be a magnet for more people to come to that state illegally. No one thinks the Biden administration wants to secure the southern border. By the way, I'll point out, they gave permission to California to give this free health care.
Yeah, it really is, Julie. It's one of those things where you've got healthcare, we get $68 billion deficit, and now they're giving away free healthcare when a lot of our veterans, it takes them months. Talk to a buddy, months to get in to see a doctor.
It's absolutely horrible. You watch Bill Malugin for 30 seconds and you understand that we have a wide open border.
Mm-hmm.
Hundreds of thousands of people, I think it's 250,000 people are coming across every month.
Yeah.
And so,
well, 300,000 in December, so that's the last month we have. Yeah.
Great. Okay. And so these people are now fleeing. They're coming to California because we're offering all of this wonderful free stuff for them. You know, Bill O'Saley has a lot more to say on this because thankfully he's the only sane person in our state assembly.
Because Bill is pushing legislation to try to stop this thing, Bill. I mean, it's a hard stop when you're a Republican, you're in the minority, but you got to do something, right?
Well, our job is to be a strong and vocal opposition party and let the people know what's happening. I introduced Assembly Bill 1783 on Wednesday this week to revoke funding for illegal immigrant health care because we can't afford it, and it's unconscionable that we would spend California tax dollars to subsidize the health care of foreign citizens before we take care of our own citizens here in this country. And if you ask me, the real insurrection is the one happening at the border right now.
Yeah, I just want to move on very quickly because talking about California, it's invested billions of taxpayer dollars in high-speed rail projects, way over budget. We're talking about the bullet train. Well, now the bullet train appears to be back on the front burner because they got a little bit of federal money. Here's the senior correspondent, William Lajeunesse.
There's the best part. It means jobs, union jobs.
That's President Biden last month, committing hundreds of millions of tax dollars to two projects many Americans may never see.
It is, the train to nowhere.
California's high-speed bullet train back on track, thanks to a $3 billion grant from President Biden.
The current project, as planned, would cost too much and respectfully take too long.
Contractor Brightline will receive a near-record federal grant to a private company of $3 billion, 25% of the project's cost.
Folks, we've been talking about this project for decades. Now we're really getting it done.
Yeah, quickly out of this, Bill, I mean, the whole concept here is it's going to cost tens of billions of dollars. It's going nowhere, right?
This is the biggest fraud perpetuated on the California voters. They were told if you pass this initiative, it would cost $30 billion, and you get from LA to San Francisco in less than 3 hours. None of that's true. It's costing over $100 billion, and it's going to take you over 4 hours to get there. It makes no sense. It's a fraud, and if it was the private sector, they'd be indicted.
Now it goes from outside of Bakersfield to Merced, and nobody wants to take it. It's kind of crazy. Stand by, both of you would, because a third batch of Jeffrey Epstein documents was unsealed, revealing more disturbing information about Epstein's child sex trafficking operation. The new release includes the deposition of a former driver who claimed that he would get paid $200 for each 16 or 17-year-old looking girl that he dropped off at Epstein's mansion. Tony Figueroa also alleged that Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and Virginia Giuffre would, quote, all go out to clubs to pick up girls and try to find them to bring back for Jeffrey. It is now crazy. Back now with Julie Hamill and Bill Asaley. And Julie, to you first. I mean, I know that Jeffrey Epstein is dead and some of these other people are dead. Is there any kind of recourse that these victims might have against the estates or something else that they could go after?
I understand that the estates did settle with certain victims who filed claims. And there was a $290 million settlement from J.P. Morgan, I believe, over the summer. But in terms of criminal implications for the people who are named, to be fair, most of the people named in these recent documents are not accused of wrongdoing. Right. But if I'm Prince Andrew, I'm not making any plans to come to America anytime soon. Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. Bill, I mean, maybe we see is there any way that we can use this information to stop it from happening again, to maybe, profile some of these human trafficking, sex trafficking rings?
Well, I think the people that dropped the ball here was the government, the prosecutors. They've known this information for a long time. They had the power to stop it and prevent future victims, and they sat on it to protect people in power. That's the real scandal, and that needs to change so that never happens again. We have the laws on the books, they were not enforced. Yeah, and even when Jeffrey Epstein was convicted, he had a sweetheart of a deal. He could leave all week, come back, served on the weekends, and he was a pedophile. It really was. It was government top to bottom that messed this up. Bill, Julie, thank you both.